Hello, my name is Barbara Kay, and on behalf of my co-host Susan Pertnoy and the Jewish Federation of Palm Beach County, I'd like to welcome you to our program, Mosaic.
Our focus today is a celebration of Birthright Israel. We'll be back with our program and our special guests after this brief message.
They say that caring for the elderly is a profession of the heart. As the director of home health care at Morse Life, I know that to be true. When I see an older person feeling safe and secure at home, I know I've done my job. To make a difference, to show compassion, dignity, and respect, it's not just our job, it's our mission.
Morse Life Home Healthcare.
Morse Life Health System, honoring senior living.
Welcome back to Mosaic, and welcome to you, Charles Bronfman, the Honorary Chair of Birthright. You are so amazing.
I am so pleased to be with you, Barbara Kay, anytime.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Listen, I think it's very important. I want to tell the people that are watching that in 1999, you sat down with Michael Steinhardt, and you said, you know, there's a problem in the world, and I want to solve it. And I think the two of us can do it. What did you say to each other?
Well, I'm not so sure that's the way. Actually, Michael spoke to me.
Okay, whichever way it works.
And it was, the wonderful part of the story is it was at an Israel Museum function in Jerusalem, and we sat on the stone wall looking over, if you'll pardon the expression, the Valley of the Cross. And he said, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, you know, that's very audacious, Michael, to try and do this with trips and vouchers for all these kids. It's a scheme to bankrupt the Jewish world. That was the beginning of our negotiation.
That was the beginning. Well, first let's explain that the Birthright trip is underwritten.
Yes.
And all the youngsters that go on it that are eligible to go, their expenses are covered.
Yes.
And that was your initiation concept, because how can you turn down a free trip?
But there was a reason for the free trip. And the reason was that we asked some good researchers to go and find out from college-age people what countries they would visit if they could go for 10 days with no cost to themselves.
Did you really?
Yeah, and Israel was not in the top 20.
Oh, that's interesting.
So then we said, let's concentrate on this one, because obviously we can't charge. If they won't go when it's free, they're not going to go if they're charged. So therefore, let's try and see if we can get people to go by astonishing them in some way. So what we did was we put audacious, I use the word again, ads in college newspapers and college radio stations. And the first time around, we had 12,000 applicants for 8,000 spots.
Really?
And Michael and I financed the first trip because we said, well, we better prove this because we're going to ask people for a lot of money. And so we knew we had a success if the trips were any good. But we didn't know if the trips would be any good. And we got letters back. It was astonishing. And then we hired Brandeis, which has a wonderful research department, and it's honest research. There's no messing around with those guys. They could not believe the numbers. They asked questions after the kids had been on the trip, and they looked at the results. They said, this is crazy. Over a 90% acceptance rate. Not only acceptance, but thrilling rate.
You know what's incredible? The idea of the way you plan the trip, though. You know, in other words, the concept of what goes on when they get there. How did you get that done?
We decided right from the outset that this would not be a party trip. I know it's got a lot of connotations about a lot of drinking and a lot of this, that, and the other thing. But one of the things we said was, okay, you learn when you're having a good time. You don't learn necessarily from books. You learn through experience. So let's take these young adults on a trip where they look at their roots, and they're taught more about their roots, and they discuss them among themselves. And we'll put them on buses, and there will be at that time 48, I guess, people to a bus. Now it's quite wonderful because there are 8 Israelis mostly from the IDF, who come for at least 5 days on those same buses. And the interaction of the two groups is just marvelous.
You know something, it's an amazingly successful situation. It really is. I think in many ways, as I probably feel, it's the future of what's going to happen here, because the connection that you make and those kids make on this trip with Israel is extraordinary.
And with each other. You know, they come back and they say, I was on bus 10, or I was on bus 23.
Is that wonderful?
And that becomes,
Yeah, I love
look,
that.
they're in very close contact. They eat together, they bus together, they travel together, they sleep together, and sometimes they really do sleep together. But that's
Well.
another matter. But
We've had a lot of marriages that came out of it.
oh, a heck of a lot of marriages. I don't think we've had any divorces yet, please God.
You know, you have a lot of partners that help you. The federations help you, and private funding helps you, and that's very important.
And the government of Israel,
Yeah,
big time.
Really.
And the government of Israel has now realized that Birthright, A, financially is good for the country, very good for the country, and that B, it is a hope for the future in terms of the diaspora. And so the government now is giving us, of a $130 million budget, $130 million, the government's giving us close to 40.
Wow.
We also have one donor who gives us 40, or has given, which is not healthy. To have that much in the hands of one donor is not healthy. God knows what happens if something happens to him.
Yeah, well, that's a problem,
you know.
but
So we have to go out and fundraise like mad. And fortunately, the Birthright Israel Foundation is a bona fide, very good fundraiser. And, you know, $3,000 to send one person over to Israel.
wow. Listen, Charles, I have to tell you, tonight is a very special evening. Not only you being honored, but it's really promoting Birthright as well. So we have a lot of guests that are coming on the program just to talk about their experiences. But what a pleasure, always.
Always
to
a pleasure
be
for
with
you, my dear.
Thank you.
See you later.
Yep.
Welcome, Judith Levy.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here.
Well,
Again.
yes, we're thrilled to have
Yes,
you.
on behalf of Birthright.
Yes, you're actually a member of the National Board of Birthright,
Yes, I am.
and you are the chair of the state of Florida for Birthright. That is quite an undertaking. Can you tell me what you do?
Well, basically what we do is raise money. The need and the necessity of doing this is great. Most of our work is done here on the East Coast.
It's quite a large area to cover.
Palm Beach, Boca, Miami. Because Birthright has only been in existence for 14 years. So we don't really have staffing to go out to the West Coast, and certainly no staffing within the Federation to handle any kind of Birthright experiences for their community specifically. So right now we're concentrated here on the East Coast.
You were a national member of UJA. You've been past president of our federation here. What motivated you to take on such a grand position for Birthright?
I didn't realize it when I was president. At first I was campaign chairman, and then I was president. And I didn't realize it until the very end of my involvement on that level, that as I looked around the room one day at a board meeting, I said to myself, you know, we have some wonderful leadership in this room, but who's going to take our place? I really got scared, Susan. I didn't see the community having a younger generation that was coming up that could step into our shoes, only because they hadn't been exposed yet. And I remember speaking to Charles one night, and it had nothing to do with Birthright, but speaking to him about my concerns and my fears about the future of the Palm Beach Federation, the Jewish community here, which represents many federations, many Jewish communities across the country.
Right.
I said, where are the kids? Where are the young adults? Not my children, but our grandchildren. Are they ready to assume? Do they know about their Jewishness? Do they know about their identity? Because I am concerned.
Well, you are a perfect ambassador for this position.
Never realizing that it was going to lead to, my involvement in Birthright.
Can you tell us some of your fundraising events that you're holding, and who your target audience is?
Our target audience here in Palm Beach is the general community, the general Jewish community. I think the real target audience, though, for Birthright would be being able to speak to young people who are between the ages of 18 and 26 and telling them about Birthright and telling them there is an opportunity there for them to, it's their birthright to be able to go, and this is a gift from my generation to their generation, and why they should participate and be part of this experience.
That's very powerful. We're attending an event tonight that you are chairing. Do you want to tell our viewers about this special evening?
Yes, it is special, and this is only I think the fourth year, Susan, that we've grown to have an event. It's going to be at Sidell Miller's house, and we have a wonderful roster of speakers. And my goal in this evening, other than to raise the necessary dollars, my goal is to expose the people that are coming, all 180 of them are coming, to expose them to what is Birthright. What do we do? It's not a free trip that their parents don't have to pay for it. There's a reason for Birthright, and to let them hear the story through people other than myself. We have some alumni that are coming that I believe are part of this program.
Yes.
And representative of the kind of people that want to go on Birthright or that get exposed to Birthright. And I guarantee you that there won't be a dry eye when some of them speak.
Oh, I know.
It hits you hard.
Yes, it does. Judith, thank you so much for joining us. You do such a yeoman's job, and your commitment is so infectious.
Thank you. And I am going to see you at this Birthright event.
You definitely will.
I know I am. But thank you very much for asking us to come.
Our pleasure. We'll be back with the remainder of our program after this brief message.
It was a shock when my smart, strong husband had a stroke. His mind was agile, but everything else failed him. I didn't see how he could possibly recover. But through patience, skill, and compassion, the caregivers at Morse Life brought him back to himself. They brought him back to me.
Morse Life Short-Term Rehabilitation.
Morse Life Health System, honoring senior living.
Welcome back, and welcome to you, David Fisher.
Thank you.
The president of Birthright Israel Foundation.
Yeah.
What is the mission of the foundation?
The mission of the foundation is really to drive the financial support to make the Birthright Israel experience possible. You know, there's a history from the beginning where the program was funded by the founders and a few of their friends, and then it extended a little bit beyond that, kind of like a startup in business, funded by friends and family. And as Birthright grew, the need for broadening out that investor base really has become much, much more considerable now that we're taking 45,000 people a year. It's far beyond a friends and family enterprise today. We now have about 30,000 supporters on an annual basis.
Let's step back for a second. Who is actually eligible to go on this trip?
Sure. Young Jewish adults between the ages of 18 and 26, as long as they have one Jewish parent, if they're here in North America. If they're coming from the former Soviet republics, in Eastern Europe, then the requirement is only one Jewish grandparent.
And the cost of each participant is?
About $3,000. If they're coming from from the U.S. or from Canada, it's about $3,000. It's a little bit less if they're coming from European countries because the airfare is going to be a little bit less.
You have something very interesting. You've expanded your trip providers to encompass a lot of options for your
Right.
participants. Can you talk about this, because it's really something special?
Sure. It was very interesting. I actually heard a story from the beginning of Birthright just a few months ago. And at the beginning, they didn't know how many people were going to go. They didn't know how popular it would be. In the first year, they took about 9,000 people, which I think was success beyond what anybody really imagined.
Right.
And back in those days, there was essentially one trip, right? There was a few different trip organizers, but essentially they ran the same trip. And last year, in 2015, there was 127 different trip options available for people.
Unbelievable.
So, as no differently than people can walk into a coffee shop today and have it exactly how they want it. There's really so many different ways that a Birthright experience can be had for our participants. We really are trying to meet the young people where they are today, with Israel as a backdrop, but really give them an opportunity to explore some of their own personal interests. Whether it's in the culinary arts or agriculture or entrepreneurialism, wide spectrum of interests.
It's terrific.
Yeah.
You recently had your 500,000th participant on the trip. I think her name is Molly.
That's correct.
Moving forward, what do you need to do or initiate to make sure that we have the millionth participant attend?
So a couple of things. So it took 15 years to reach the 500,000 participant. One of our founders, Charles Brunkman, who I know you know, is celebrating a significant birthday this year. I promised him that we would do it in 10 years, so that at his another significant birthday, I won't say which one it would be 10 years from now, that we'll be at 1 million by then. So that we have to do it in 10 years instead of 15.
Okay.
And in order to make that happen, we really have to continue to grow that base of support beyond the 30,000. We really have to get our alumni, our participants, who some of whom are now, in their late
Eligible,
30s or
right.
40. We need to help ensure that they're giving back to the program and remembering really what an experience it was for them, and to pay that gift forward.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Joining us is Rachel Smith, a Birthright tour educator. Tell me, what's a tour educator as opposed to a tour guide?
Okay, so that's a question that many people ask, and an important one to clarify. First of all, in order to be a tour educator, you do have to be a tour guide, meaning that I am a graduate of the 2-year course of the Ministry of Tourism of Israel. So I'm a qualified tour guide of Israel to show anybody of any background around the country. But about 4 years ago, Birthright Israel decided to invest in its tour guides, and they created this concept and this almost movement, if you like, of tour educators. It might sound purely semantical, the change in name, but there's a huge amount of intent and thought behind it. The concept being that rather than going to a site as a tour guide would and showing you everything that's around and telling you everything you possibly could about that place, when you're a tour educator for Birthright, the focus is not the site, but it's the group. And you're actually using the site to hook onto whichever themes are going to be most relevant to your group. What's important as a tour educator, as opposed to a tour guide, is you're not there to be the expert in the field, to answer all of the questions about what you see. Rather, you're there to educate and to facilitate an experience. And it's all about what your group is going through and ensuring everything is very interactive, is very relevant, and using the site to address big questions that are relevant to the group as opposed to just the site itself.
It sounds like it brings out so much excitement in the participants.
Absolutely. And to be honest, if it didn't bring it out in myself as well, I probably couldn't do this
Well,
anymore.
you're very passionate about this. How did you get started?
Well, my story, I suppose, begins in England, bizarrely, as you can tell by the accent. Born and raised in London. And after university, I started working in education. In fact, even before university, I was very involved in the youth movement scene. So from an early age, either experiential education or formal education was definitely what I was going to be doing. About 11 years ago, I made Aliyah. I moved to Israel. And in doing so, I knew that I wanted to stay in education. And I was teaching on a gap year program, and I don't even remember if it was Zionism or if it was Bible or if it was anything else, but I happened to mention about a particular subject we were talking about. Oh, and this actually happened about 5 minutes down the road. And I had this epiphany moment of, so why are we saying this in the classroom? We should go down there where it happened. Like, Israel is the only place in the world where you can take the Bible, you can take history books, you can take whatever you want, and suddenly it comes to life because that's where it all happened.
Well, Rachel, guess what? We have a video on a Birthright experience, so why don't we show our viewers that and then we'll come back.
Fabulous, let's do it.
Hi, my name is Jessica Davis, and I'm from Morristown, New Jersey.
I'm Samuel Bloom. I'm from Charleston, West Virginia.
I'm Jess Jordan, and I'm from Rhode Island.
Evan Lambert from Orlando, Florida.
Most of my friends were never really Jewish. I never really felt a part of the Jewish community. And I can honestly say after 10 days in Israel that I've never felt so much closer to it.
This is a place that I've learned about my entire life from when I was a very little kid, all throughout my college experience, and it's just absolutely incredible to be here in the Holy Land and really get to experience it for the first time.
I haven't really felt like there were any moments that weren't significant on this trip. I mean, from going to the Western Wall and to just the bus rides, getting to know people and seeing everybody's transformation, everybody becoming a little bit more in touch with each other, more in touch with Israel.
At the Holocaust Museum, there was a quote. He said, "If I am alive, I will live." I want to take that home with me and in my life make sure that I'm living it to everything that I can.
I've always had a sense of Jewish pride, but coming to Israel has really made that more profound, and I realize what an incredible country this is and how nice it is to have a home for the Jewish people.
I can't wait to go back and tell people who have this misconception of what Israel really is, and to tell how beautiful it truly is.
When I think of Israel, or when I think of the Israeli people, or the soldiers who were with us, or my fellow Jews in the United States, it'll be those feelings that'll help to guide my opinions in the future. That, I think, is more important than any physical thing I could bring home from Israel.
Growing up, my mom was Catholic and my dad was Jewish, so I never truly identified with either faith. The Jewish faith was all about being a better person and working towards doing good in the world. And it was the first time that I really understood that I could identify with the Jewish religion.
I spend a lot of time thinking about school, thinking about my everyday life, where I'm going. And this trip has really been an opportunity to take a step back and think about Judaism and what it means to me and why it's so important to me. So getting the chance to reconnect with my faith, I definitely think I will take that thought and those connections and the new things I've learned and just be more in touch with my Judaism. It's really important to me.
There's just something about Israel. It's like an addictive country. Once you come here, you can't help but want to come back.
For me, this trip has really been a chance to explore my Jewish identity. I had such a great time doing that. I celebrated my first Shabbat here, and I'm really looking forward to when I go back home, bringing that Shabbat tradition back home and celebrating it with my family for the first time.
It's given me more confidence in what I want to do and how I want to relate to the Jewish community when I'm back.
I don't stop talking about Israel when I get home. I talk about what I saw. I talk about the friends I made, the people I met. Been recruiting my friends at school, telling them, you have to go on Birthright, you have to go on Birthright.
That was such a powerful video. I can totally understand why you're so passionate about your work.
Right? It's amazing. It's a privilege that I get to do this.
It really is something, and you bring such a special component.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome, Shira and Josh Toba. What a pleasure to have both of you here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're both alumni of Birthright. Yes. You're a professional in Miami at the Federation.
Yes, I'm the Young Leadership Director at the Greater Miami Jewish Federation.
That's pretty impressive.
Thank
you went on a special needs trip for Birthright.
Yes.
Want to explain how that trip is put together? Or maybe...
My sister.
Your sister?
You want me to?
Yeah.
So we actually didn't know, my family didn't know that it was an option for Josh to go on Birthright. Mm-hmm. And he was involved with a social group down that was based in Palm Beach and Broward and Miami. Mm-hmm. And it was through them that they said Josh would be able to go on Birthright. So we applied, and we were grateful that he was granted an age exemption because he had already turned 26, and he was accepted to go on the program. So we put him on a flight to New York. He flew by himself to New York, and then he met with his group, and then you went to Israel, right?
Yes.
And you loved it, right?
Yes.
Good.
You did love it? You
I loved it. So great.
It was so great. You brought a book with you.
Yes, I do.
Is this the composite of the trip?
Yes. So this is pictures from his trip. And also the provider was really great about communicating back with the families while the trip was happening. So we have emails every day about what the trip was doing, about where the group went, and we were able to really experience it with him pretty much on a day-to-day basis while he was in Israel.
How long was he there for? The entire 10 days?
The entire 10 days. It's pretty much the exact same trip.
Really?
I think one of the only differences is you took the cable car up on the top of Masada, right?
Yes, I did.
You took the cable car instead of hiking through Masada.
Well, that was pretty smart anyway.
Yes.
Yeah. Trust
That's
me.
a big hike. I've done it. Yeah. Were there many people that you met on the trip that you became friends with?
And my friend Eric.
Your friend Eric?
Yeah.
Was Eric your counselor on the trip?
Yes.
He wasn't from Florida, was he?
New York.
New York. Okay, so now you got a New York pal.
Yes. I see him still.
You do?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Do they have a lot of young people applying for this kind of trip?
I think they do have a lot of people applying, but you're not seeing people being turned away. A lot of the providers are now offering special needs trips, not only just in general, but depending on the need of the individual. So I know one of the providers in March, actually later this month, is hosting a trip for people who are on the autism spectrum.
Really?
So it's just people who are diagnosed on the spectrum, and all of the staff will be equipped to handle it. So they're really trying to make the experience tailored to the individual.
You know, that's wonderful. Why do you think it's so important for all of these people to have the same connection to Israel? Why?
Well, I think Josh is no different from you or from me. He's caring, and he's lovable, and he's charming.
He is.
And he grew up Jewish. He had a bar mitzvah. He read from the Torah. He went to summer camp.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, you did. And so there's no Jewish experience he shouldn't have just because he has special needs. So I think it's really incredible that it's an opportunity for him to go and have a normal early adult Jewish experience just like everybody else.
Can I tell you something?
Go ahead.
I'm so happy that you came to share your story. I mean, it really is something special.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. I really appreciate it so much.
Thank you for having us.
The future of Jewish life is Birthright. I'm so convinced.
Oh, it really is. And it's such an exciting program for the participants. It's no wonder they come back all enthused.
You're right. Thank you for being with us. Be with us again next week when we have another look into the Jewish world. Goodbye from Mosaic.